Hello everybody, my name's Novi and welcome back to the channel. I'm sure some of you that have been watching me for a while are taken aback by what's behind me, but we have a new backdrop. We have a Lucha Cat, Sting's last match, Marvel, a whole bunch of stuff surrounding me. Honestly, if I showed you everything on this wall, it would just look like an explosion of all my interests in poster form. But I hope you guys like it. We'll probably move some stuff around at some point, but for now, this felt right to me. Before we jump into today's topic as well, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for weekly live streams before Dynamite and new videos just like these every single Saturday. Always doing one thing: talking grabs. Now with all that out of the way, let's talk about saving matches. To be more specific, the idea that promotions shouldn't run specific bouts until certain shows, whether that's because of an upcoming pay-per-view, a special named weekly TV episode, or just the match happening in someone's hometown. There's a large group of people out there that think the biggest matches can only happen at the perceived perfect time, or the promotion is doing it wrong. This sentiment being applied to Swerve vs. Ospreay happening at Forbidden Door is really what inspired this video. The group of people that feel that way have been very vocal about that match not happening at All In particular. And honestly, I do get it. That's the biggest venue, the biggest crowd, and the most prestigious event that it could possibly happen at. Not even just that, it also comes down to the fact that if Ospreay were to be in that match and were to win the world title, he would be doing it in front of his home crowd. And of course that's a big deal because usually that leads to the loudest reactions possible. But people have also taken issue with the fact that the AEW world title isn't being defended at Forbidden Door against a New Japan or CMLL wrestler. And again, for this one, I get it. That is the spirit of the show after all. But what do I think about it when it comes to Swerve versus Ospreay? Well, even if I keep saying I get it, that doesn't mean I agree with these sentiments wholeheartedly. Sure, Swerve versus Ospreay at All In would be absolutely killer. There's no doubt about that. But there is something to be said about putting your two hottest acts against one another as soon as you can. In this case, it's bold, it's daring, it feels like AEW is taking a big risk, and I love it. There's always a chance that one guy is more over on the night and ends up feeling like the right choice, which runs the risk of, if they were to lose the match, the vibes wouldn't be what you'd want them to be. I think back to when the Acclaim got super over against Swerve and Keith Lee when they were having their match for the tag titles all that time ago. People surprised themselves when they left that match disappointed that the Acclaim didn't win because they were just so over on the night. Funny how things have worked out between both those teams looking back now. Or what also could happen is that we get to All In and the matches we actually do get don't hit as hard as this might have. Based on the rumored bouts for both Ospreay and Swerve, I couldn't see that, but it is always possible. The thing about this match though is that no matter who wins, they're cemented as AEW's top guy. AEW is getting the chance to really pick a face of the company moving forward, which is a choice only made possible by making a matchup between your two hottest acts. Whatever choice they do end up making can lead to so much for both guys, and it's why I don't want to wait for these kinds of matches. Another thing that fires me up when I think about this one is that both guys are very feasible winners. It truly feels like the classic unstoppable force, immovable object type deal here, and it's making it harder to predict the result by the day. That's what you want in your top title feud. You want people to constantly doubt who they think might win, because when they do, every near fall and every finisher hits that much harder. It's a big reason why I'm against saving it till Wembley too. This feeling of unpredictability is not one that they could produce if the match was taking place at All In. There, it would be pretty obvious that Ospreay is walking out as world champ. But in the USA, however, it could really go either way. It's a lesson in simply running the matches that people want to see as soon as you get the opportunity to. A lesson in not saving the match for some perfect moment. If we're being totally 100% honest too, it's almost refreshing to see. It's so common for the big two promotions to hold off on stuff we actually want to watch in favor of that perfect moment. Funnily enough though, when it comes to AEW in particular, it wasn't always like this. But with the pay-per-views happening almost monthly now, they've shifted away from running the huge matches on TV as often as they once did. You know how I know? Go look back at where all three Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Adam Page matches took place. You don't have to, I'm gonna tell you actually. Dynamite, and Dynamite. That's something that can't be undersold. We were seeing two incredible main event professional wrestlers work with the world title on the line on free TV. No pay-per-view paywall, no streaming service, just regular old television. Those could have all been pay-per-view main event matches easily But they didn't hold back. Not at all. They let two of their biggest stars wrestle on TV, because that's when wrestling TV is at its best. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they should run Swerve versus Ospreay on Dynamite. That would be nuts. But sometimes it's okay to let top stars wrestle each other on platforms that might not be the perfect spot I keep bringing up. And on this point, it's also okay to let top stars lose once in a while, even on TV. It feels like we're seeing less and less of it these days, with so many predictable matches all across the wrestling world. I despise it, because like I was talking about with Swerve Ospreay, a match being unpredictable makes it that much more interesting. I'm sure you guys are really noticing by now that that match really did inspire this video, but I just really wish promoters would realize that a top name losing to another top name won't kill the fans' belief in them at all. If you job them out consistently, sure, then it might just happen. But a loss here and there to another top star won't hurt anyone. In fact, it could help them get more over if played off of right. We can take a look at the Continental Classic from last year as a great example of this. Of course, the person from that tournament I want to talk about is someone I talk about on this channel damn near every week, but for good reason, Daniel Garcia. Remember back, he lost every match in that tournament except one. And through that one victory, he got more over than he ever has been. Because there, they told the story of a guy who was just barely losing to all these top names in the tournament. Finally, at the very end, at the buzzer, overcoming it all and breaking through that wall and beating a main eventer. Everybody loves a tale like that, especially in pro wrestling. It's a story that simply couldn't be told unless he was facing those top names in the company, like he got the chance to. We can also look at someone else in that tournament, Mark Briscoe, as another great example of this, but in a different way. He lost every match in the tournament except one, just like Danny, and he, like Danny, but honestly to a lesser degree, got more over because of it. In his case, just like Danny, it didn't matter that he was losing to the top stars. All that mattered was that he was holding his own against them, and he was looking great doing it. Sometimes it just comes down to showing what you can do in those big time moments that really pushes you over the edge. Mark Briscoe was already a made man in that company due to all his matches in the past, but his performance there really solidified him at the top, because in my opinion, he was one of the best of the whole tournament, probably number 2 behind Danielson. And again, just like Danny, he never would have gotten the chance to show that unless he faced those top names. Both of these examples are why companies should be more willing to put two top names against one another, even if it means one of them has to lose. Because ultimately, even in a loss, so much good can be done. The last thing I want to bring up in relation to saving matches is why I feel like promoters do it. Of course, we just covered them not wanting a top star to lose, but the other reason I have is something we very briefly touched on earlier in this video. It's that promoters' mindset of, we'll get to it down the line, don't worry about it. This is a mindset that I, for lack of a better phrase, think is dumb as fuck. Usually, all it does is prevent the big matches from happening at all, which just makes everyone sad. Whether it's an injury, backstage politics, or the rare holographic one, a wrestler just leaves the promotion. Turns out though, it's not that rare. It just recently happened when Kazuchika Okada left New Japan. Throughout all his time there, which is pretty much his whole career, he almost never faced any of this new generation in singles matches. The only two he had were against Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura when they were both young lions, so it barely counts. The reason why this happened? Gato and the office for sure thought they'd just get to it down the line. Most likely because they probably thought that they never lose their golden boy. But this is pro wrestling, and crazy shit happens all the time, to the point where promoters have to try and anticipate it nowadays, in my opinion. If Gato and the office had just done that, they would have paved a much easier road for their young generation to get to success. They would have also given them history, maybe even a win or two, against the longtime face of the company, which in turn would have prevented all the scrutiny and discourse they received about Okada's relationship to this young generation. Or in other words, if they had just not saved the big matches, they wouldn't have received all this backlash. It's a lesson that leads me to my final conclusion for this video, which is that companies shouldn't always save the big stuff for that perfect moment. Sometimes it's best for it to just happen. I do want to make it very clear though, once again, this doesn't work in every case. Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega 2 wouldn't have had all the vibes and energy if it wouldn't have taken place on Forbidden Door last year. But even with that, there's so many times where companies should just let loose and do the cool thing. Fans tune in, buy pay-per-views and tickets to see the biggest stars go against one another. And when you give them that, especially when guys are at their hottest points like Swerve and Ospreay, it's very likely that numbers go up. And even outside of the charts and graphs, the matches themselves just feel that much more otherworldly, which in my opinion is the spirit of this game that we love. So promoters, run the match. Give the people all the top stars going head to head. Because right now through Swerve and Ospreay, we're seeing how much good that can do you when selling the gravity of a show. Because we as fans just want to see the coolest matchups. And these promotions can absolutely do it. With that being said, that's going to do it for today's video, everyone. This is one of those videos where I really want to hear from you all. So please, give me all the takes down in the comments below. Do you think they should have held off Swerve versus Ospreay until All In? What do you think about saving matches as a whole? Whatever your thoughts on all this is, fire away. Also make sure to leave a like on the video, it helps out a ton. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel while you're down there typing up your strongly worded comment with your take. One last thing too, since we talked about it so much, I might as well give my prediction on Swerve Ospreay. I'm almost 100% sure that Swerve comes out with the win. Because like I said earlier, a win over the 1B face of the company really does cement his world title run. AEW worked so hard to get him to that main event level, and while I would understand going with the hot hand and Will Ospreay, I think you have to cement, and I mean truly cement, this world title run that Swerve's on with a main event at Wembley Stadium against a certain cowboy. I'm excited to see what happens though, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on this channel when it's all said and done. For now though, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been Novi. Much love to each and every one of you. Peace.